Hello again, baseball romantics. Jason with you for another RAB podcast episode. And this week we're at full strength. We got Nico coming off the IL, and Bruce is with us again, fresh off a trip to Citizens Bank Park, I believe. So we'll get his thoughts around that. And we welcome you folks that have been listening to us to another episode. We appreciate your support. And we're going to kick this off this week with a discussion, just kind of a general discussion around teams that are maybe borderline wild card postseason, and maybe some things they could do as we're still a couple months from the trade deadline, but it's never too early to talk a little roster improvement. So we will do that. Here's we are on June 1st as we record this. So we have put May in the rearview mirror, a lot of data behind us now to see where these teams are and project forward. So that's what we're going to try to do. And we are going to kick it off with the American League this week, especially since Nico's back with us, and take a look at what's going on out there. So as you look at the American League, Nico, we're talking, we talked last week. Now there are three teams in the AL East above 500. My Toronto Blue Jays, the New York Yankees, of course, and the Rays are hanging in there at a game over. So let's start in the AL East. Obviously, the Rays and the Blue Jays and the Red Sox still, they got to win over the Braves today to get back to within 3 games of 500. So let's start there with these borderline teams. We know the Yankees are going to be there. We've talked a lot of Yankees. Let's talk about these other 3 teams. In fact, I asked Bruce last week who he thought would finish second in this division, and Bruce said the Red Sox will still get it back together. So, Nico, your thoughts around those 3 teams?
All right, guys. So, hey, good to be back with you. Looking at the American League East, obviously, like you said, Jason, it's the Yankees division. It doesn't look like anybody really is even going to come close to the Yankees. They look like they have a very comfortable lead. Obviously, Toronto's there, Tampa Bay's there, Boston's kind of hanging around 3 games under 500. I agree with you, Jason. I think the team in the AL East that has a chance to finish second, whether or not it's going to be enough for a wild card, I think it's the Jays. I think with Vladdy's contract and sort of that high, they're the hardest team to forecast, Toronto, in my opinion. There's a high ceiling and a very low floor, and they've kind of been closer to the floor, but we know they can potentially get to another level. It's just a matter of if they can. And my friend Bruce, as he mentions many times, doesn't believe in the Jays, and they have to prove it to us. But I think that I think I trust them the most. I think Tampa is just going to kind of hover around 500. The good thing for them is looks like another star is born with Junior Caminero. He's really coming around and starting to show some of his promise. So I think Tampa, and like we've talked about in the past, Cash is a good manager. They've had a good program there for years, and since he took the job 10 years ago. He's the longest tenured manager in baseball right now, Cash. He may be coming to an end, but we'll see what happens. But I don't think Tampa has the horses to keep up in the AL East. And I don't know what the hell's going on in Boston. There's just a lot of drama going. I understand that Alex Bregman's out. Looks like he's going to be able to come back. We're not so sure. They haven't really been overly transparent on that. But it looks like he's going to come back maybe sooner rather than later. But Boston's just kind of a mess. And I just don't know what to expect from them on a day-to-day basis. Crochet's been an absolute beast for them. He's spun another gem today, 12 strikeouts in Atlanta. But they're 3 games under 500. And if you look at their starting the lineup without Bregman, it leaves kind of a lot of holes there. And now they called up the kid Meyer to play first base with Bregman's injury. There's a lot of questions. When's Roman Anthony going to come up? He's another big prospect for Boston that we're anticipating him getting called up, but where's he going to play? Is he going to play center field? Rafael is there. Rafael has played a great defensive center field, but he can't really hit. So I think Roman Anthony's going to get called up pretty soon, but I'm not too sure what to expect with Boston. I know Bruce still believes in them. I'd like to believe in them. They actually play the Yankees later this week, so maybe if the Red Sox can get back to 500 and actually play a meaningful series against the Yankees later this week. But I think the team, I hate to use the word trust because you can't trust them. I like the Jays. they're relatively healthy as we stand here on the 1st of June. And Bichette's having an improved season. Vladdy's not really hitting, as many home runs as he liked to be, but I still like the Jays to finish second, considering I have no idea what the hell is going to happen with Boston. That's where I'm at with the AL East, and obviously the Orioles.
Sorry, I think Varsho got hurt today, and he's only batting like 207.
Yeah, he pulled a hamstring, I think, Jason, didn't he?
Yeah. So, but he's kind of a power guy, and I think he's kind of a clubhouse leader too. I will say this too: when you look at this, Nico and Bruce, so the thing that stood out to me and surprised me a little bit, the Rays have a plus 41 run differential. The Jays are still -5, and the Rays are 18-19 at home. So they've played a little bit of an inordinate amount of games at home compared to everybody else because of the heat down there. They're trying to get those games early and late for the Rays. If they had been playing at the Trop this whole time, you just wonder, because they obviously haven't played great at Steinbrenner Field. They're a game below 500. You just wonder if the Rays might be firmly in control of second place right now if they had. But yeah, they're plus 41. I'm starting to believe a little more in the Rays sticking in this thing. I'm still on the Jays. I need to get me a Canadian flag just to irritate Bruce a bit. But the Rays are starting to show me that maybe this is not going to be so easy for the Red Sox to come back and grab that second spot.
I think the Rays are always tough because, Nico, you mentioned Cash. I think Cash is just a good manager, generally speaking. And I think he gets the most out of whoever he's got. But the Rays don't have the horses, like you said, Nico. They're gonna be around probably, but they're not gonna be there at the end. So I mean, you want to talk about the Rays versus the Red Sox for second place and not a playoff spot. You mentioned it, Jason. I think the bottom line sits with the run differential and the inability of the Jays to score the runs they need to win games. They're negative in the run differential. They've only scored 248 runs total this season. I'll take the Red Sox over the Jays in a head-to-head matchup or for the rest of the season anytime. The Jays only have. So what I like to do is take that OPS and say that's my baseline for an every major league ball player. If you're going to hit me at 735, 740, you got to bring something else to the table, to justify that OPS. If you're below 700, upgrade, do something better. The Jays have 3 players over 755 OPS this season. 3. That's it. They don't have anything else. They have George Springer, Vladimir Guerrero, and Bo Bichette. Bichette 755. The offense just isn't there to really be competitive for the Jays. Their pitching is pretty decent, but the offense just isn't there. Flip the script on the Red Sox, and you're looking at Bregman, who he's hurt. I don't think he's going to be out for the rest of the season. Nico, like you said, they're not really being forthcoming with Bregman and his timetable. It wouldn't really surprise me if we don't see him before the All-Star break, maybe. And that's going to hurt the Red Sox because he leads the team with a 938 OPS and those 11 home runs are nice. But Devers got a 923 OPS. Wilyer Abreu 814. I mean, they've got guys who are actually putting the ball in play with power and driving things into the gaps, driving in runs. So I believe a little bit more in the Red Sox because of that. Plus, you want to turn the page over to Jarren Duran, who's got 13 stolen bases to his credit. So they're making some things happen offensively that the Jays just aren't doing. And then you take Garrett Crochet, who is going to go out there and give you every time. Every time he's been money for the Red Sox. I like the Red Sox way better than the Jays. What I don't like is Crochet is 5-4 with a 1.9 ERA. You got to look at that and feel a little pain for him. It's not Paul Skeens level pain, but you feel a little bit for Crochet, who thought he was going to a team that was going to be competitive this year. The rest of the pitching staff isn't terrible. They're not inspiring either. They're somewhere in between. But I still like the Red Sox better than I like the Jays, and that's really why. The Jays they have no offense this year.
We shall see.
For the record, I'd like to see the Tampa Bay Rays host in ALCS and hopefully a World Series.
I'm buying tickets.
Yeah, just to irritate Mr. Manfred a little bit, but yeah, and then obviously, like I was saying, the Orioles, I'm not going to spend too much time on them. They did sweep the White Sox, so they did prove they're not the worst team in the American League, which is to start, right? And again, I agree with a lot of your assessment last week. I think the Orioles can get back to respectability. They're not as bad as that record shows they are. Cowser is going to be coming back on the 3rd of June, joining them on a road trip. So he's another bat. And then I think the Orioles, it's a lost season, right? They're not going to. It would be miraculous to get back to 500 or even potentially in a wild card situation. But Skip Schumacher, keep an eye out for that name for the next managerial position in Baltimore. He was a really good manager down in the Marlins. He did make the postseason 2 years ago, if you guys can remember. And anybody of quality leaves the Marlins. Players, coaches, anybody that actually has usage on a major league franchise will leave the Marlins. So
well, remember, Schumacher walked away.
Yeah,
he did. Yeah, he did. And he's a good manager, and I think it would be a good fit there, because they need a leader in that clubhouse. So I think with his leadership, he's a younger guy. Some of those young guys like Rochman and Gunnar Henderson, I think he can steer the ship to a better direction for Baltimore.
Yeah, one thing that could even out a little bit for the Orioles, they're 5 games below 500 at home. So you might think they'll get back to kind of the 500 mark there. That could help them out. But, yeah, it seems like a lost season, though, for Baltimore overall. Let's talk AL Central, gentlemen. Kind of the same question. You've got 3 teams behind the Tigers. Tigers are 6 games up, so we'll put them to the side. Guardians, Twins, Royals. The thing that stands out to me, the only one of those 3 with a plus run differential right now are the Twins. They're 10 games over 500 at home. So out of those 3 teams, who do you believe in the most? Let's start with Bruce on this one. Out of those 3, Bruce, who do you believe in the most?
I think out of those 3 teams, if the Twins stay healthy, I like what they're doing when they're healthy. They're able to win games. They're able to put it back together. They're able to play a little bit of small ball and get the runners around and play. Their pitching is good enough to maintain what they're doing. And I think that all things being equal, that right now they are the better of those 3 teams. I'm not even entirely sure how the Guardians have put together a 32-28 record. I think we said that last week, Jason. I'm still not sure how they 32-26. I'm not sure how they're doing it, but they're winning these games, close games. They're winning them, and then they're not. When they lose, they're losing. They're not even competitive. So it's feast or famine in Cleveland, and the Royals are. If they can get a lot of 1-0 games, then they might make it. But boy, I'll tell you what, that offense is a snoozer this year.
Still haven't scored 200 runs. Still haven't got there.
They haven't gotten there, and outside of Witt and Pasquantino, everyone seems to bring wiffle ball bats to the field every day.
Yeah.
And eventually that's going to stop too, because no one's going to pitch to Witt or Pasquantino. I mean that just doesn't make any sense. So until the Royals figure out how to score some runs, I can't believe in them for the wild card this year. It's really hard to do. And the Twins, they're scoring runs. They're winning games. They're plus 30 on that run differential. Can't argue with that.
Nico, what do you think about those 3 teams?
I toss and turn with Cleveland. I agree with Bruce. I don't know how they win ball games the way they do. Like you mentioned, the run differential is negative 16, but they keep winning. I don't know. Again, they lose players and just manufacture players that nobody's heard of, and they continue to play winning baseball, even though statistically it doesn't really add up. So I just can't put too many tokens in the Guardians basket. I just don't think the talent is there. I just don't think they have enough. Minnesota, I agree. I think if they can stay healthy, they can play, again, pretty good baseball. Joe Ryan's been great for them, starting pitcher for the Twins. Byron Buxton's still healthy. Carlos Correa is healthy. if they can stay healthy, I think they can hang in there. But, then you compare them to the Royals. They are, allergic to offense in Kansas City outside of a few guys. So it's kind of hard. I wrestle between the three of them. Personally, I'd love to see Bobby Witt back in the postseason. I mean, selfishly, I think we all do. No offense to my man Trevor Plouffe's Twins, but I'm going to say Kansas City. I'm going to go with the Royals. They did it last year. I don't know if they're going to make any moves at the deadline. Are they going to call the young kid up and see if he can come into that offense and maybe provide a spark? So I'm going to say Royals, and not a great deal of confidence. But who's to say that any three of those teams get into the playoffs anyway? Because you have Houston.
If things stay the way they do today, they don't.
Yeah.
Right.
But the Royals this year remind me of the Tigers team last year. Like, I kept thinking the Tigers, man, they'd be okay if they could just score. And then the second half of the season, the Tigers just went on that run, right? So I guess anything's possible.
I think, like Nico said, if I'm not sure if the Royals will make a deal, but I think they might. I think they might do something. I do think the possibility of calling Caglianone up is there. I think that maybe they'll look at it and go, you know what? We're gonna burn his eligibility and call him up, and if he hits, then all of a sudden they've got this offensive power they didn't have before. And maybe that also sparks Salvi to start hitting again, and it makes India a little bit more effective. Guys that they counted on being effective that just are not this year. And why isn't Salvi effective? I don't even know why he hit 40 home runs a couple years ago. Who knows? The guy never seemed to age, and now all of a sudden he is. I don't get it.
He played in the 90s at this point. I thought I remember he played in the mid-90s.
Yeah, I don't know if Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa were his hitting coach at any time in the recent past. But whatever it is, it's worn off, and the Royals need to figure that out if they want to make the postseason. And Caglianone might be the answer. And I don't know if you guys are following the Cedric Mullins trade rumors or not. But if the Orioles are going to move him, there are several teams that could benefit from a guy like Mullins, not just the Phillies, which is where all the conversation is right now. There are several things. He could go to Seattle. He could go to Kansas City. And these are teams that have things to trade to get a Mullins and make the Orioles a better team and benefit. I think there's just so many teams that Mullins could benefit, and the Royals are absolutely one of them.
Yeah, I think Nico brings up a good point, too. The one thing I don't want to see, and it would be for a different reason, obviously, the injuries with Trout. I don't want to see Bobby Witt Jr. become the Mike Trout that we never get to see him in the postseason, right? I mean, he's so electric. He's such a great ball player to watch. I hope the Royals can build around him and be a consistent postseason participant, because I feel like we've really been robbed of Mike Trout. Even before the injuries, he wasn't really getting to the postseason a lot. He's played 3 postseason games, I want to say. Like, it's crazy.
That's
it's absolutely insane, right? So, all right, good stuff. Let's get to the West. There's a team out there I know Nico is rather fond of. So the Mariners, it's hard to kind of – this one we're going to have to include almost every team in the division, maybe outside of the A's. But the Mariners are in first by half game as we speak. The Astros, we talked about them a little bit last week, Bruce, kind of snuck up on me at least. I didn't really notice they were still kind of this close to the division lead. Rangers still scuffling.
I'm still saying they win the division.
Yeah. Bruce picked the Astros to win the division. I'm sticking with the Mariners. I did pick the Rangers, unfortunately, to go to the World Series. This 2 years in a row. It looks like they're going to let me down. They did get the series from the Cardinals, I believe, over this weekend, but they're still 2 games under 500. They're only 4 games out, though. So, I mean, if the Rangers got their, like we just said about a couple of other teams, if they could find a way to score runs, the Rangers would be right there. So I guess the question in this division is still up for grabs. Who wins the division, Nico? I'm interested in your response after Bruce is picking the Stros. I'm sticking with the Mariners. And then, is there going to be a wild card spot available for number 2 in this division?
So yeah, this is this. I take no pleasure in saying I agree with Bruce. I think it's contingent on whether or not the Mariners are going to acquire some offense at the deadline. That's the question mark. I mean, they've got a factory of pitchers that they can deal. From Castillo.
But they have to be willing to deal them, Nico, right? Don't they have to be willing to actually deal them? They're holding them hostage, and I understand because it's such an asset to have
5, 6 really good starting pitchers in baseball. And, you look at it, there's so many teams that can use a Castillo or a Kirby or a Gilbert. He's on the IL. Again, I don't know who they would potentially move or even shop, because they haven't showed any signs that they want to move him. The only one you heard a little bit of rumblings was Castillo. So as of right now, the Mariners are being carried by Cal Raleigh. He's carrying that offense. Yeah. It's not Julio. It's not, a Rosarina. JP Crawford he's been okay, but it's been the big dumper. Right now, you can make an argument if Aaron Judge wasn't Aaron Judge putting up those numbers, he's the leading candidate for American League MVP, Cal Raleigh. Look at the numbers.
Right now, yeah. Right now, yeah, but
he had another home run today.
You have to ask yourself, can he keep doing it? And I say that because he's a catcher.
No.
So as we get into August and September, who's Cal Raleigh going to be? He's going to be tired. That's who he's going to be. They need Rosarina and they need other bats to pick it up, like you said. They really do.
Who's out there, guys? But you mentioned Mullins. Who's out there offensively for these teams to go after? I mean, I'm looking I've heard Luis Robert Jr.'s name, but I'm looking at his stats.
Yeah, he's not going to be a White Sox at the deadline. He will get traded. But really, you're right. He's not putting up numbers.
Yeah, 180, 5 homers, 561 OPS.
And the Athletics haven't seemed to be willing to deal any of their players, from what I'm hearing. So even though they've got a couple of guys, I think they're content to build step by step over the next couple of years to be competitive. So they're not dealing. I don't know who else the Orioles might be willing to deal. I think the White Sox aren't willing to deal a whole lot either, because they've already gotten rid of who they're going to get rid of.
To the point that you kind of made last week, Bruce, the more teams that stay in this thing because of the 3 wild cards, the less
it ruins the whole thing.
There's going to be,
it really does. Right? It ruins the whole thing because there's nobody out there, and you're going to get a couple of guys out there that teams are going to have to overpay for to get. What I haven't heard is what the Orioles are asking for Mullins. What are they expecting in return for him? He's not 28. He's not at the peak of his career, but he's still a good player. I wouldn't be upset about having him on my team, but he is not, the guy that I'm giving up my top prospects for either.
I agree.
So that's the question. Who's out there that you're willing to trade for?
Well, how about Cowser on the Orioles? He's coming back from the IL. The Orioles aren't playing for much, so they need pitching, right? Can we agree, guys, that the Orioles need pitching?
They do.
So I think the more I think about it, the more I've sat on it. I think the Orioles and Mariners could be a potential partners in a trade, because they have no pitching. Absolutely. And the Mariners are suffering offensively. So Mullins is a name. I've heard Cedric Mullins rumored to the Phillies, actually, Bruce. I'm not sure if you got wind of that.
Yeah, that's what I'm hearing a lot of, is Mullins to the Phillies. And I keep looking at it and going, okay, who are they going to trade? Because the names Mick Abel and Aiden Miller and Justin Crawford can't be in that conversation. Not for Cedric Mullins. There are other guys that are pretty good they could trade, not them. You want to move Johan Rojas over there, call up Crawford, fine. And Rojas is not a bad player. He's just not a great hitter. He's an okay hitter. You want to move Edmundo Sosa, move Edmundo Sosa. And after today, you want to move Trey Turner? For God's sakes, move Trey Turner. I swear he's the worst shortstop on the planet. But
I'd say I'll put Austin Riley on the block for the Braves. Everybody's biting.
But I don't know like I said, I don't know who Baltimore thinks they're going to get for Mullins. What is he? 32, 33? Is that right?
Yeah, I think he's 30. I believe he's.
Oh, is he 30?
30.
Okay.
Yeah, he came up with the Orioles. He's one of the guys that was there for the good, bad, and ugly.
He'll be 31 in October.
So. But yeah, I'm going to stick with Houston in the West, because I think that sort of what Bruce mentioned last week. I don't mean to agree with Bruce on everything, but they're not the same team they were a couple of years ago, right? They lost Bregman, Tucker. they, obviously Dusty Baker's not in the clubhouse anymore, even though I do think Joe Espada is a good manager, but I don't think he's Dusty Baker. Dusty Baker was kind of magical in his little Houston run there. So, but I still think Houston's showing you that they can still win. They're still a winning program, a winning team, and their offseason acquisition, Christian Walker, has been horrible, but now he's starting to improve. He's starting to hit the ball like we know he can. And the Mariners actually just played the Astros last weekend and lost 3 out of 4. And they kind of showed the Mariners like, hey, we're still the big brother here in the division. And we may not be the flashy team we were a couple of years ago, but, it's still our division, not the Mariners. So I still think the Mariners can win the wild card, but it's just contingent on they're going to have to be active at the deadline, and I'll keep screaming about it until Jerry DiPoto hears me. But they're not going to get to the playoffs with that offense. It's just not going to happen. They will flounder.
You said they don't get to the playoffs, but we just talked about the rest of the league, right? We just talked about the mediocrity that exists offensively in the league. If not the Mariners for the wild card, then who?
Ooh, wow.
Who's a better team than the Mariners to make that? Let's just say they don't win the division. Who's the better team? Cleveland isn't necessarily the better team. Minnesota, maybe, yeah, sure. We kind of talked about that, but who else? Kansas City isn't scoring runs. Who else
Texas
is it?
Underachieving. Yeah.
Well, Texas might do something. Texas might pick somebody up. I like Texas at the deadline, but even that, there's still a wild card slot open. Then I think the Mariners make the playoffs. I do. Yeah, I'm still not buying it. They'll make the playoffs.
Well, let's look at today's game. I don't know if they won. We're recording here on Sunday evening, so they were up 1-0 on the Twins, the rubber match, and going into the 9th inning, they were up 1-0, courtesy of our
2-1.
Did they walk it off?
Mariners walked it off in the bottom. Yeah.
Great, that's great. So they're still in. Still in first place. I know Astros lost 2 out of 3 to the Rays. So, but you can't be complacent, right, guys? You can't just say, oh well, we're in first place, so we're good enough. No, you're not good enough. You have to be better. You have to get better. You have to improve that offense. So I agree.
See, the nice thing about the Mariners is the Mariners, like you said, they have pieces they can move to make the team better. And it's not just pitching. They've got some young guys they can move out of the minor leagues to maybe do something there to improve. I don't know. They got Luke Raley, who is not an answer to anything other than top 10 most disappointing acquisitions. They've got. You want to believe Julio Rodriguez is going to give you a little more at some point this season. Like you really do. I don't know why he's not, but he seems to either be the guy or not the guy for Julio. And right now he's not the guy. I just love this Cal Raleigh with 23 home runs. I mean, that's just that's impressive to look at.
So weird when you pull up the home run leaders. He's on top.
The whole thing is weird with the home run leaders. One night Shohei hits 2, the next night Judge hits 2. Now we got Raleigh. I mean, it's just, and then Schwarber gets cold, but then he's going to get hot again. It just goes up and down the whole time. It's a lot of fun to watch, to be honest with you.
It is, yeah. All right.
But I believe in the Mariners. I think they're going to be there. I just think the Astros are more of a machine that just knows how to win. Whether it's Joe Espada or Dusty Baker, I think there is a culture there that they go out and they play and they win, and that's what they do. They learned how to do that with AJ Hinch. They learned how to do that when Cora was there. They learned how to do that with Baker. I think it's just the culture that once you buy into it, you play. Paredes has really come in and been good. Christian Walker, listen. I understand that people thought he was this big guy with a bat. He is not. He had a couple of good years. He's not Pete Alonso. He's not. He's not any of these guys. I was disappointed the Astros thought he was and didn't really make a really good put him in. So that was really disappointing. But you know what? I still think they win the division. I really do.
I understand why you'd pick Houston. I completely do. But somebody's got to stay on the Seattle bandwagon because we've already got people on our page, Seattle fans, climbing to the top of the Space Needle, ready to jump off of it. And they're still in first place. Those poor folks, they're just waiting.
Well, because that
for
trauma, the trauma is
Absolutely,
right there. It's skin
Absolutely.
deep, the trauma for Seattle fans. It really is. When you've never had a winner, you've been let down that much, and you have a team who had the best regular season record, and they still blew it.
Yeah.
I understand the sensitivity. I really do.
I'm staying with them just to show them some support. What the heck? My preseason picks are completely awful anyway, so might as well just jump on the bandwagon. Let's talk National League. We'll skip the NL East. Let's just keep going. No, I guess we got to talk NL East. All right. Well, a week ago, me and Bruce were talking like the Phillies had complete control of this division, and we were hyping the Phillies up. And I look at the standings now, gentlemen, and a few days later, the Mets are in first place by a game. As the Phillies have lost 4 in a row, the Mets have gotten the ship turned around. They've won 8 of 10. Of course, they have played, you got to throw that out there. They played the Rockies and the White Sox, but they're about to go out to L.A. and face the Dodgers again. The Nationals are in third place now, as the Braves have lost 8 of 12, I think, overall now. So, and by the way, we really need to talk. I think, Bruce, you mentioned him maybe last week or the week before. As we talk about the NLA, we got to talk about James Wood.
James Wood.
Yeah, that guy.
I called him Jason, but
you did. But
he is like that whole team, and like he is such a guy to watch. He really is.
He is, he's the kind of talent that may not come along that often. We got to keep an eye on him.
Mm-hmm.
But so, this is another division like the AL West where it's not decided. We don't really have a clear front runner. I'm still going to be on the Phillies bandwagon, but to me now it's Phillies and Mets. We talked about the Braves. I'll go off on a tangent with the Braves on my Braves podcast tomorrow, but any other thoughts here, guys, except we keep waiting for the Mets pitching to stop doing what it's doing, but they keep doing it. They still got a plus 67. The Phillies only got a plus 22. The Mets are still 17 games over 500 at home. They're 18 and 10 against teams over 500. Is it time to fully buy into the Mets? Or I'm sticking with the Phillies, but the Mets in the postseason, they could be dangerous.
The Phillies and Mets both make the playoffs, I think. I mean, yes, I agree. I've said it 100 times that Mets pitching staff, I don't believe in it. But what I do believe in is that they are going to get Manaea back at some point, and he is going to help that pitching staff stay relevant. The question, and I said this at the beginning of the season as the Mets started to show that their pitching was going to be pretty darn good, was that if what they have now can get them to a point to where they get a reinforcement, then guys like Clay Holmes get the pressure taken off of them a little bit, and they can not have to be the guy when they go out there. And you get a Manaea in there who can then give you some innings, and his arm's going to be fresh when he comes up, so that you can move him in and you can juggle that pitching staff a little bit and give them a little bit of rest as the innings start to pile up. So I do think the Mets have built up enough momentum and enough cachet to say that they're going to make the playoffs. The Phillies are still a better team, but again, going back to what I said towards the beginning of the season, they're trotting out effectively the same offense they had last year, and they're expecting it to perform differently, and it's not. It's going out there and it's running through streaks where they're the best team in baseball, and then now they're running through streaks where they can't hit the side of a barn with a bat, and that's where they are right now, where they're losing absolutely nonsensical games to the Milwaukee Brewers that they shouldn't lose like that, but they can't score any runs against the Brewers. Why can't they score any runs against the Brewers, for goodness sakes?
As long as Jose Quintana, it should be okay.
Yeah. Jose Quintana today was absolutely horrible for the Brewers. The Phillies put up 2 runs.
Yeah.
They put up 2 runs. And I'll complain about Trey Turner's defense all day because he lost the game for them. But the reality is that offense was absolutely anemic today, and it shouldn't have been. So, who wins the division? I don't know who wins the division, but both teams are going to make the playoffs.
We know both these teams are going to make moves. We know that's going to happen. So what these teams look like now, like me and you talked about, what matters is where are these teams at as we go to October, right? We know both of these teams are definitely going to make moves, maybe starting pitching for the Mets. Not sure what you think the focus for the Phillies should be. Bullpen help maybe still, but probably not going to be the teams we're looking at now. Any hope here for my Braves? I got to ask. Any hope, Nico, or should I just go ahead and pack it in for the season?
I'm losing hope, but I still have some hope. I don't know what's going on, man. I watch the Braves and they just feel like they're stuck in the mud. Some days they can hit, some other days they can't. Some days they can pitch, some days they can't. I'm looking at Schnicker. Do they need a new voice in the clubhouse? I'm not saying that he should be let go. Obviously, Acuna's back. He's looking really good. He's got 3 home runs. They're just a roller coaster right now, and I don't know. I can't pinpoint it. I think it's mostly the bullpen. Pitching's been okay, but I think a lot of, like you mentioned, Jason, you beat a dead horse with it, but I agree with you that their at-bats are very poor, specifically Austin Riley. And maybe, like you said, maybe the book is out on this team. Maybe they've just kind of plateaued a little bit, that core there with Albies, Olsen, Riley, etc. But I'm not losing hope, man. I still like them. I don't know why I can't give up on them. 2 years ago they won. I know Bruce is going to yell at me for saying 2 years ago, but they did win 100 odd games 2 years ago. They went to the playoffs last year when everything went wrong. They still managed to get to the playoffs. I will say one thing about the Braves, Jason. I think losing Travis d'Arnaud was a big loss in that clubhouse. He was a quiet leader in that clubhouse, and he wasn't necessarily a great player. He eventually was a 50. He split time with Murph at catching, but he was a really, I thought, just a killer for that team, especially in the postseason. He had so many big hits. How many times was Travis d'Arnaud in a big spot and he delivered? You know what I mean? You know what I mean, Jason. You follow them, the clock. So
no, you're exactly right.
I'm not giving up on them.
About this. Yeah. No, the two biggest losses for the Braves since, if you take out, you think about it, they lost Freeman, they lost Dansby, they lost.
Yeah.
And these are not just numbers, guys. Dansby's not been great since he left for the Cubs, but he was a clubhouse guy, right? Freeman's, making himself a first ballot Hall of Famer at this point. Dansby's gone. Fried's gone. AJ Minter is gone. He was kind of a heart and soul guy. d'Arnaud is gone. It's a lot to replace, and there's nobody on that team right now that I think is a vocal leader. Olsen's a quiet guy. Riley's a quiet guy, and Riley needs to give back about half his salary. Let's get off the Braves. I'll go off on them tomorrow on the Braves podcast.
Well, Jason, the one thing I want to point out about the Braves and their woes, so to speak, I said before, Spencer Strider's got to come back and be the guy who leads that pitching staff, and he there's something not there right now for him. His fastball's only clocking in about 95. It still has movement. He's having trouble finding the strike zone. He walked 4 guys in 4 innings against the Phillies. That's not Spencer Strider. And when you're not throwing 98, 100 constantly, that fastball is a little flat at 95 for him. Whatever it is, if he doesn't find it, they are done. If he finds it, maybe they can at least be competitive in the league. Because again, if they go 3-4 that first 7, they're a 30-win team right now, and they're on the cusp of that 3rd wild card spot. So I think they could be there.
Elder gave up 3 in the first today, and everybody's like, "Oh, Bryce Elder," and then he shut it down. Man, he didn't allow another run. The bullpen, which to Nico's point has been shaky here and there, but overall they've done okay. They did their job, and at least twice the Braves had runners in scoring position with nobody out and got nothing. You got runners at first and third or second and third. Sean Murphy comes up and he's swinging like he's trying to hit the ball to Cincinnati from Atlanta, right? 0-2, and he's swinging like he's going to spin himself into the ground. That's a terrible approach at the plate with runners in scoring position. Just get the man home from third, right? All right. I shouldn't have got off on the Braves. We got to stop. The fans will get an earful of that on my Braves podcast tomorrow.
Hey, Jason,
Yeah.
real quick, I just wanted to highlight something. I wanted to just talk Nationals for just a minute.
Yeah.
When the Juan Soto got traded from the Nationals to the Padres, CJ Abrams, Mackenzie Gore, James Wood.
Yeah.
The Nationals are coming. They
absolutely are. Give them 2 years, Nico. Give them 2 years.
And GM Rizzo, he knows what he's doing. He didn't want to give up Soto. They fought that and they got a nice return. And look out for the Nationals. Not necessarily this year, but they're going to be a thorn for everyone in the East.
Great point. Yep. And by the way, I meant to mention it with the Red Sox too, but the Braves are 9-14 in one-run games. The Red Sox are 6-15. So you think about if those two teams could have flipped even a few of those games, they'd be in a different spot. All right, let's talk NL Central. The Cubs are 4 games up. The Cardinals have, of course, surprised some folks. They're now 7 games above 500, plus 30 run differential. Then you got the Brewers. We just talked about they're on this hot streak, 7 straight for the Brewers to get back to 4 games over 500, 5.5 games out, plus 18. And then the Reds, still 2 games below 500, but they got a plus 30 run differential. And I keep waiting for them to go on one of those runs, but just they don't. So I guess Cardinals, Brewers, and maybe if you guys want to throw the Reds in there. First of all, are you kind of, if we're having this discussion, does any part of you think the Cubs don't win the Central Division right now, as of right now?
I'm buying the Cubs.
There's no one competitive.
Yeah,
there's no one competitive with them.
Yeah. So let's talk Cardinals, Brewers, Reds. Any belief in those 3 teams? And I guess when we need to find belief, do you think one of them or more are wild card contenders? Can they make noise in the postseason if they make some roster improvements at the trade deadline? What are your thoughts?
I certainly don't believe in the Brewers. They beat the Red Sox, and the Phillies handed them that series. I didn't see the Brewers win those games. I saw the other teams lose them more than I saw the Brewers win them. I do like the Cardinals. You know, if there's a team that's going to surprise us, I think it is the Cardinals, because they're just scrappy and winning games without anyone being a superstar. You know, we talked about that a little bit last week, Jason. So I like what the Cardinals are doing there. And I think that if anyone's just going to show up, it's going to be the Cardinals. I picked the Reds to win this division early in the season, but I don't see it right now. I don't see the Reds putting anything together. I see Ellie De La Cruz having a good day here and there, and then I don't see a whole lot else from the Reds. So maybe Terry Francona bit off more than he could chew in Cincinnati this season, at least this season anyway. I don't know what his future plans are, but I don't know. I think if there's a team, it's the Cardinals, but I don't think any team makes the playoffs outside of the West, honestly. Besides, like I said, the Phillies and the Mets.
Nico?
Yeah, so I've been selling my Cardinal stock since February, and I think I'm going to have to start buying a little bit back because Nolan Arenado, Sonny Gray, Eric Fetty all have no trade clauses. They're all veteran guys with families, and they control their own future, so to speak, with that organization. So as much as the Cardinals are going to try to move these guys, or have tried, or are going to try, you know, they hold their own power. So it's going to be an interesting watch what's going to happen there, because if they're in playoff contention, are they going to still try to move those guys? I think they will, but they don't necessarily have to sign off on the trade. So the Cardinals are going to be hard to forecast, but I think, and again, we can timestamp this, and I know Bruce doesn't agree with me, but I think Milwaukee chases down Chicago. I think they're the team that's going to be. I mean, I'm very encouraged sweeping the Phillies. I mean, you have to admit that's pretty impressive. You know, it is impressive. Bruce is not.
I don't think Bruce thinks it's impressive.
Yeah,
the impression he does.
So Pat.
No, the Phillies
Pat
could get
Murphy,
swept by the Rockies next week if they play like they played against the Brewers. The Rockies are going to take them.
Eesh.
I think Milwaukee and Chicago are going to be the 2-team race going into October. I think Pat Murphy lit a little bit of a fire in that team when he made some comments about how the organization didn't spend money last winter, but the guys in the clubhouse are still good enough to win. They're 4 games under 500, and they haven't had a losing season or anything close to that. I'd have to look this up, but many years. They've pretty much owned that division since the Cubs won the World Series in 2016. So I think Milwaukee chases down Chicago. I'm not sure if they win it, but I think Milwaukee makes it to the playoffs. I believe in them, and I believe in the manager. And I don't know what's going on in Cincinnati. They don't have enough offense right now. I think, like you said, Bruce, I think Frank Kona, it could be a mushy, 77 winning team this season. But who's to say, what they can do in the future?
I think people are underselling the Cubs. I mean, I don't know, Nick. The Cubs surprised me. I pulled these numbers for a post. Every team's win percentage in May compared to April. The Cubs actually had a better winning percentage in May than we did in April, which surprised me. I felt like they had taken a step back, but they were actually playing .667 ball and in May. So the Cubs to me, if we're going to talk about deadline deals, like what can they do? They've got some starting pitching. They got more pop in that lineup than I thought they would have. What could the Cubs do to maybe get into that Dodgers, Phillies, Mets discussion? If we're going to put the Mets there, I don't know.
Well, I think we said a little bit about it last week. The Cubs are going to need another arm for sure, and they're going to need to go big, a big arm. It could be to Seattle, Nico. It could be rolling the dice on Sandy Alcantara over in Miami. But that's where their need is, because I don't know when Emanaga's coming back, and we know Steele's not coming back this season. So that's what their need, because if they stand pat with what they have, other teams are going to get better, and the Cubs aren't going to be the class at the National League anymore. And I think that's the danger with being the surprise team this year in the Central, being this good, because you're looking at a team that over the past 5-6 seasons has been very mediocre. 83 and 79, 2 years in a row, 74 and 88, 71, 91. And now all of a sudden they're showing up like, they're gonna run the table this season. So I think they need to be wary of staying pat come July, and they need to do something to make that pitching better.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah, go ahead, Nico.
No, I agree with Bruce. I think they can use an arm. I'm not sure who they would part ways with. I think, again, I don't want to sell them short. I think they're pretty good currently constructed. I mean, they're sitting pretty in first place. I don't think they have dire needs, but definitely another arm would definitely help that club out. I mean, I think they're in good shape, but are they Dodgers level, Phillies, Mets? I don't know. We'll see.
Well, who are the Dodgers going to be come October?
Yeah. To me, the Dodgers are given. Like, they have so much depth.
We saw it last night.
Unless
right, and that's where they are, Jason. Right, they've got all this depth. How much of the guys who aren't depth guys are going to be back in October? So how good are they going to be? They may be a totally different team come October on a different level that the Cubs can't compete with.
Yeah, and I think that's
or at
a great
least as
transition.
currently constructed. I mean,
Yeah, let's transition to the NL West. And before we get to those wild card type teams that we're focusing on, is there a player right now for the Dodgers that you feel like they can't afford to lose? Like, if they lost this one, I know it's easy to say Shohei or Freeman, but if they lost this player, is there a player that this team suddenly becomes not viable to win another World Series?
no, because when Shohei wasn't hot, they were still in first place.
Yeah.
And now Shohei's hot and hitting, right? He is. And he's doing what they're paying him to do. But even when he wasn't, they were still winning.
What's crazy to me is out of the big three, I think the one they could most afford to lose is Mookie Betts. And Mookie Betts is a fantastic baseball player, but that's how good and deep this Dodgers team is.
They could
It's
afford to,
insane.
like I said, they could afford to lose any one of them. And we've
Yeah,
seen them without Freeman and do just fine. We haven't seen him without Betts. I think if I was making a list of the 10 best players in baseball, he's on it.
Mhm.
Period. Like the best 10, period.
Yeah.
Mookie Betts is on that list. But I don't think there's any one player they could lose that would make a huge difference.
Even guys like Will Smith contribute to that team. It's just
Yeah.
unbelievable, the depth. All right, let's talk. I'm going to throw this out there too. And by the way, as we started recording this today, it looks really bad news for the Diamondbacks. It looks like Corbin Burns may have done something to his elbow today. As we record this, there's a video going around where it looks like Burns tells the trainer or teammate, he's mouthing it, that his elbow is dead. So we'll hope for the best on that for Diamondbacks fans and for Mr. Burns as well. But the Diamondbacks are already 3 games under 500. And I saw the stat from our buddies at Talking Baseball earlier. So I went ahead and pulled every team's record. So they had put up that the Diamondbacks were 13-11 in games where they've scored 6 or more runs. So they're barely over 500 when they score 6 or more runs. So I pulled that, and that is the second worst win percentage in MLB in those situations, only to the Rockies. And the Rockies have only played 9 games, so they're 4-5. The Diamondbacks have played 24 games where they scored 6 or more runs and only won 13 of them. I thought the Diamondbacks pitching was going to be better than that. I mean, that's got to be some bullpen issues, obviously starting pitching. 13-11 guys out of 24 games, and nobody else has more than 5 losses in those situations. And those other teams with 5 losses are the Rockies, the Marlins, and the A's. The Reds also have 5, but the Reds have also won 17, so it's not as bad as it sounds. Nobody else has more than 4. I thought that was kind of insane. The Tigers are 23-0 in those situations. They score 6 runs, they win. And by the way, the White Sox are even 10-0 when they score 6 or more runs. So that all to say, are we going to now remove the Diamondbacks from this wild card discussion, or is it too early?
I'm not going to remove them yet. I will say I unfortunately wasn't here for our last show, but I think in the National League they've been, again, we can argue Braves obviously, but they've been the most disappointing team in the National League, the Diamondbacks, in my opinion. I thought if there was a team in the West that was going to not necessarily, win the division, but, be at the heels of the Dodgers, I really thought it was the Diamondbacks. I really did.
I did too.
And
We'll get Bruce kudos on that one. He did not.
Yeah, Bruce is right. He's usually, I don't know. We'll see. It's a
Well,
long way to go.
Well, look, they were a fringe team coming into the season. That if everything went well, you guys would have been absolutely spot on.
Well,
They'd have been there. But that division is just so good and so competitive, and you just can't count on everything going right. And there's Corbin Burns. You're done.
Yeah.
You're done.
Yeah. So with the Diamondbacks, I think to stay the course. Again, they've got a pretty good team. It's a culmination of starting pitching and bullpen issues. So now with the Burns injury, right, we don't know what's going on there. Hopefully it's not serious. Zach Allen, Merrill Kelly are on their walk years. If the Diamondbacks continue to lose, do they trade those guys?
That's a good one, Nico.
That is a good one.
That's a good one. I didn't think of them.
Because
who couldn't benefit from Zach Gallen?
I mean, he's a premier starting pitcher. So I'm not out on the Diamondbacks yet. I love the manager. I love Torey Lovello. I like the GM, Hazen, Boston guys. But I'm going to hold on to hopes with the Diamondbacks for right now and the Braves. I think the Padres have fallen back down to earth a little bit. The Giants have as well, even though their records are much better than the Diamondbacks. So I still think the Diamondbacks are okay for now. I think the goal is to be at least at 500 by the All-Star break for Arizona. And again, we'll see what happens. But it looks like it's the Dodgers division, like we anticipated.
Gallen, 5.54 ERA with a 1.395 WHIP. Not the Gallen we've gotten used to seeing for sure, but to Bruce's point,
but that makes him good trade bait.
Absolutely. Absolutely does. And that was a good catch by Nico because And that again proves your point, Bruce. Like if you didn't have 3 wild cards, it's almost a no-brainer, right? Arizona's getting ready to sell. If you don't have 3 wild cards, they're not even thinking about this. But
Well,
yeah,
right, but the reality is if they're, if you look at them right now, and if it continues to play out, the Diamondbacks aren't even close to making. I'm sorry. Well, let's ask that question.
Yeah.
What to you is close enough to that third wild card to buy instead of sell? Is 5 games out close enough?
Yeah.
What I look
It
at
isn't
is
for me, but I think it is for some teams. I think
well,
some
what I
teams
look at is
would
more
go.
who's in front of them, right? You got the Giants, the
Right.
Cardinals, the Brewers, the Reds. I don't fully believe in any of those teams staying on the pace they're on now. Like the Giants, I still think could fall back. The Cardinals, I still think could fall back. To Nico's point, the Cardinals may still sell. We don't know. I'm with you, Bruce. I don't believe in the Brewers. So if I'm the Diamondbacks and the Braves and the Nationals, even they're 5 games out, then yeah, that's enough for me because of the teams in front of me to say we're still in this thing, right? So
Right, but
I
that's the
think it's
problem
dependent
is
upon that.
they may not say that, Jason. What they might do instead is shoot themselves in the foot and hang on to these guys and go get somebody and still miss the playoffs.
Yeah,
And now they've missed an opportunity to make the team better. Same thing, and the Cardinals are absolutely going to do that because I don't think Aaron Allen wants to be traded. And we already know Sonny Gray has come out and said he wants to play for the Cardinals. That's it. So he's not going anywhere either. Now I do believe, like I said, the Cardinals are a potential. If there's anyone out there that we're not expecting, it could be the Cardinals. But I think the Giants are playing right now where they should be playing. They had a hot streak, they got in a really good spot, and now they're going to play kind of in that middling area, which that's good enough to make the wild card. It absolutely is.
yeah. Nico, thoughts?
Yeah, I think I think every team's different when you approach the deadline. I think if you're Arizona, 5, 6, 7 games out of the wild card. But again, there's so much unknown right now with Arizona because this Burns injury throws a wrench into everything. Because if they lose Burns for, let's say, the season, and they can't trade Gallen and Kelly, that means they're giving up, on the season. And did you see what Brandon Pfaadt did last night? He couldn't even log an out
That was rough.
in the first inning, and they just paid him a nice little contract. So he's supposed to be, the guy that maybe replaces Merrill Kelly or Zach Allen, when those guys walk. So they're kind of a mess right now. And obviously, I shouldn't say a mess. Corbin Carroll is a great player. Ketel Marte, they have some nice cornerstone pieces, but it hasn't worked thus far.
Can I say something about Brandon Pfaadt? They just gave him they just gave him a contract, right? Brandon Pfaadt is a guy who threw 96 innings in 2023 and put up a 5.72 ERA. He was good in the postseason. He was. Last year, he throws 181 innings, which is great, with a 4.71 ERA. He's a guy that his strikeouts per 9 are good, 8.8 to 9.2. This year he's at 7.1, so he's down 2 full strikeouts this season over last season. He's kicking a 5.05 ERA right now. I don't even know why they paid him anything. This is a number 5 guy. He's not replacing anybody.
Bruce, that's a great point. And you may have
He is
touched on
close
this,
to
but
being released
Well,
our
with
buddy,
those
the
kind of
nostalgic
numbers.
baseball geezer, mentioned this. Like starting pitching isn't and probably shouldn't be as valued as it used to be because
Oh no, yeah.
you've got 2 situations. One, they don't perform like you think they're going to over a long. Any pitcher can go out and have an amazing postseason run or an amazing couple of months, right? I remember Ian Anderson with the Braves was key to their 2021 World Series, and since then he's been hurt. He hasn't done anything. And then the other thing is the injuries. You're just waiting for these guys. You're waiting for Skeens. You're waiting for Scooble, unfortunately, for that elbow injury like Burns probably got today. So if you're a GM of a team, are you investing long term in starting pitching at this point? Because you got your hosses like Zach Wheeler, like he seems invincible, right? But like I probably shouldn't have said that. Phillies fans are going crazy when they hear this. Like, you're
Well,
gonna do this.
but Zach Wheeler muddled in a lot of mediocrity with the Mets. He would be
True,
really great, and then he wasn't great. Really great,
true.
wasn't great.
That's
But
right.
when the Phillies signed him, everybody said, well, he's going to be the best version of Zach Wheeler that he could be in Philadelphia. And it turned out great.
Right.
But that was a gamble.
Yeah.
It was, and that paid off, unlike 90% of the other gambles with starting pitching. That's the reality. Look at the Yankees and Garrett Cole right now. How
Look at
many
the
starts has he missed now over the last 2 years?
Yeah.
A lot. And they're still paying him, and they still don't have him. Who would they be with Cole, Fried, and Rodon the way they're pitching? The way Rodon and Fried are pitching right now, that team would be absolutely unbeatable if
Yeah.
Cole was out there pitching, just doing what he normally does. Just doing what he normally does. But he can't because he can't stay healthy. You know, and he's hit that point. And I've said it before, and I'll say it again. Pitch counts don't keep it from happening. Limiting their exposure on the mound doesn't keep it from happening. These things we're doing with these starting pitching doesn't make a darn bit of difference with injuries, and it doesn't increase career longevity. What does is proper training, proper diet, proper exercise, and there are pitchers out there who can do it, and there are guys out there that are being babied and coddled, and they end up blowing their elbows out anyway, or
Nico.
whatever. Pick your injury.
Yeah.
I'm with you, Bruce, on Brandon Pfaadt. I don't understand that contract. I don't know what Arizona was thinking there. I think that it had a lot to do with his little playoff, run that they went on when they got to the World Series a few years ago. So again, Braves are in a tough spots. So are the Diamondbacks. They're pretty much a mirror image of each other right now in different ways. But as far as the standings is concerned,
Well, they're about to play each other. So
right, there you go.
if one or the other
We'll find
sweeps
out.
that series, I think you can probably put that team that got swept to bed.
Well,
So
I'm sorry to say it, Jason.
Yeah.
I do think Arizona's the better team right now.
I mean, right now, Bruce, I think the Little League team down the street is a better team. I watched that today, and I want to scream at my television, stop swinging at the same pitch over and over again. But again, don't get me started. All right. So we've been through the entire league, guys. Any other things, outstanding performances you've noticed, or anything you guys wanted to hit on that we haven't touched on? I obviously have a lot of built up anger I could let out on the Braves, but I'll save it. I could ask you guys, I mean, it's Braves, but it's also just like, did you guys see the controversy, we'll call it, where Snicker and apparently the pitching coach didn't notice that AJ Smith-Shawver was injured, and Spencer Strider had to come over to them in the dugout and point out, hey, your pitcher's out there shaking his arm and wincing in pain every time he throws it. You guys might want to address that. Did you guys see that?
No, I did not see that.
Yeah, so there's actually video of it where Snicker's sitting there supposedly staring straight at the mound, but with him, he could very well have been asleep. The pitching coach apparently didn't notice it. Strider walks up to both of them and says, hey, he's out there shaking his arm and wincing. And that's when they finally went out and asked Shawver, because he's now out for the season, probably Tommy John surgery. That's not good. I mean, if you want to talk about the Braves organizationally, that's not good, guys. That's even Trevor Plouffe, by the way, Nico.
I think Snicker was out there wondering what it would be like to manage in New York, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. I think Snicker was thinking about what he's having for supper that night and trying to remember his first name. But even Trevor Plouffe mentioned this on their show, Nico. Like, that's a failure on the coaches to not notice that, for a player to have to point that out. And so that's been a little bit of a controversy in Braves land. I don't want to say things are falling apart over there, but not great.
Speaking of Trevor Plouffe, did you catch when he said that he walked it back, but he said that he thought Strider intentionally hit Harper? Did you guys see that?
I did not see that. But
I didn't see that.
Yeah.
That's the stupidest thing I've heard.
Really I thought to myself,
there was no indication watching that he hit him on purpose.
No,
That's not
he
Strider's
didn't.
style.
Yeah, and
And
it's
his
not starter
reaction,
style at all.
right. And they didn't retaliate, which I really was happy about because
Yeah.
I really don't
Classy
think
move.
I don't think I don't think the Braves, who are in the current state that they are, is trying to put guys on base.
No.
You know,
No.
come
No.
on. I mean, really?
Absolutely
Right.
not. I can second that.
But
All right. I keep getting you guys off on the Braves. Our listeners are going to be like, shut up about the Braves. Anything else on you guys' mind? And we'll wrap it up. Another great episode. Great
so
discussion. Anything else you guys got?
so yeah, I wanted to. You guys talked about it a little bit last week, but I think right now in the American League, you can make an argument that again, we don't know what's going to happen. There's a lot of baseball to be played. Nobody knows who's going to, make it to the World Series. But it seems like the Tigers and the Yankees are on a collision course to play each other in the ALCS. And I think it'd be a great matchup. That offense with Judge and that pitching staff in Detroit, it'd be a great ALCS. And then you look at the NL, you've got like at least 4 teams that you can make a case can get to the World Series. So 2 different extremes right now in the American League versus the NL.
I would love to see Final Four, Dodgers, Phillies, Tigers, Yankees. I think that would be
That's what we should
great
see.
baseball. If we can't get Rays, Jays, ALCS, then I'll take Yankees, Tigers.
If we
That's all I'll say.
I don't even have anything productive to say about
I
that.
don't blame you. If we couldn't get Rays, A's, that was our dream matchup, right? The 2 minor league
Oh,
clubs.
that was-
That's gonna happen. The A's are ruining that for it.
If I look over the standings and I look over what these teams are doing, and I absolutely agree with you, Nico. Right now, it's Tigers, Yankees, and everybody else in the American League today. And the horrible thing about that is the trade deadline allows you to build a whole nother team. And it allows you to do it late in the season, which is just a travesty with the way things are constructed now. But all that being said, Yankees, Tigers, if anyone else makes the ALCS, the whole system is broken. The whole system is broken and doesn't work, and it needs to be addressed. And the MLB, the front office needs to look at that and understand the level of mediocrity of baseball that's being played right now in a lot of cities. And then that ability to go out there and sell their farm to rebuild their team, like a team like the Diamondbacks did, or these other teams that do it in other years to create this run and upset the apple cart in the postseason, which is completely exciting for those cities, but it's really bad for the game. And we're seeing it now with a team like the Diamondbacks that got some special performances from some guys and haven't been able to maintain that quality of baseball because there was no quality of baseball to begin with. They got lucky to get where they were. And that's what we're seeing right now in these races. And the spending of money that teams like the Dodgers did it's not making it better. It's making it worse. And there seems to be no quality control on the field right now with watching these games. And it's a real shame. But in the end of the day, Jason, I think those 4 teams aren't going to be the final 4.
Probably not.
And it's going to be because somebody like the Giants are going to go out and pick up a couple of guys that make a difference, and they end up in the NLCS instead, or something like that.
Yeah.
And I don't know. It's as old as I sound saying it, it's not the baseball I grew up with, and I don't find it exciting when it comes down to that.
No, that's a good point. Me and you talked about it. We can do a whole episode on the current playoff format, the current state of the game. Look, guys, we're headed, not to be a downer at the end of the show, we're headed for a big lockout a couple of years. We're going to miss baseball that year. It's going to
Absolutely.
if it's not the whole season, it's going to be a significant portion of it. So I'll have
and that could be another episode.
Absolutely. And I'm sure that'll be that, along with the Pete Rose and Black Sox thing, will come up again as we get closer to those dates. So plenty of fodder for the future, no doubt. And guys, can't thank you enough for the feedback. This is a great episode, great discussion. And hey, why don't we do this again next week? Sound good? You guys up for it? All right.
Can't wait.
Sounds good, Jason.
Awesome. All right. Appreciate our listeners. We will see you at the ballpark.